You can't talk about the history of Ontario without talking about aviation. In the early 1920s, a local flying club began using a dirt field to take off and land their small, single-engine biplanes. Archie Mitchell and Waldo Waterman were among the local pilots who flew a Curtiss JN-4, known as the Jenny. Their dirt landing strip and hangar were located near the Latimer Orange packing plant, and the airfield became known as Latimer Field. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, the City of Ontario developed a full-fledged airport 3 miles east of Latimer Field, located approximately at the western end of the present Ontario Airport. A flight school was established here, and runways and an airplane hangar were built by 1936. After the United States entered World War II, the new U.S. Army Air Corps, which later became the Air Force, acquired almost 900 acres in Ontario for wartime use, including much of the airport facility. In 1942, the Works Progress Administration, known as the WPA, began extensive work on improving the airport, including the construction and expansion of 2 concrete runways. At the time, Ontario was the only airfield in Southern California capable of accommodating the large, heavy aircraft required by the military. A California Air National Guard training station was established on former Air Force land on the southern edge of the airport in 1949. An armory was constructed for the 149th Control and Warning Squadron, as well as multiple other buildings, including a hangar in 1952. The Air National Guard at Ontario was active in recruiting personnel for emergency combat readiness during the Cold War era, through training in aerial gunnery, pilot proficiency, and maintenance of fighter aircraft. The city supported this fighter squadron program in part because it offered employment to 40 permanent workers and 500 reserve personnel.
Yeah, the military would be there 7 days a week and supplemented by the civilians 1 weekend a month.
In 1945, at the end of the war, Ontario's mayor claimed the airport was the city's #1 asset and that it would play a major role in the progress of the West. A year later, Ontario Municipal Airport was declared an official international port of entry. In 1950, a modern 2-story terminal was constructed along with a control tower in 1953 with up-to-the-minute air navigation aids.
If you have an airplane or a vehicle sometimes that wants to cross the runways, they have to get permission from the ground controller. And the ground controller in turn has to get permission from what's called a local controller. And that's the position in the tower that's actually talking to the airplanes and giving them takeoff and landing clearances. And the local controller is the one that really calls the shots as to, which airplanes are going to go first, or if the most efficient way to organize things.
Although the tower stood the test of time, the terminal became quickly outdated, and Terminal 1 was constructed in 1960 to replace it. The modern $1 million terminal with jet-age facilities signaled a bright future for the city. Western and Bonanza were 2 early airlines that served Ontario passengers, at first flying no farther than Las Vegas, but by the mid-1960s, flying non-stop flights to San Francisco and Phoenix.
As bigger, larger airplanes started flying in and out of there, they did need a longer runway.
By 1967, the terminal had doubled in size, runways were expanded, and Ontario was included in a regional airport system based at LAX. In the mid-20th century, industry-leading aerospace companies began operating at Ontario Airport, including Lockheed and GE. From 1952 to 1998, a division of Lockheed known as Lockheed Aircraft Services operated at Ontario, primarily within a 70-acre parcel in the northwest area of the airport. During its 46 years of operation at Ontario, the Lockheed facility modified and refurbished commercial and military aircraft. In the 1960s, Lockheed Aircraft Services became the maintenance and modification center for the highly classified U.S. Air Force fleet of 4-engine turboprop C-130 aircraft under the program known as Big Safari. Big Safari was an Air Force program managing the maintenance and modification of aircraft used for top-secret missions.
Under classified contracts with them, we modified the C-130s. For example, we originated the gunship. We were the first time to arm a C-130 with cannons and machine guns to make it a really terrific weapon. And that was a very successful program. We also got into the electronics world. We built a whole fleet of C-130s that were what we call electronic jammers. They put equipment on board that would allow the aircraft to fly into hostile areas, and the electronics were so powerful that it would shut down all the electronics in the area. It would shut down television stations, radio stations. You could blank out anything. And we had to really be careful because we had to test that thing here, so we used to fly those aircraft halfway to Hawaii and turn them on, because if we'd have done, all of Los Angeles would have been shut down. It's a very powerful thing.
GE aircraft engines operated on the south side of the airport from 1956 to 2010. The site had originally been developed by the Army Air Corps, and GE moved into 2 former military hangars. GE provided maintenance services for commercial and military jet aircraft, such as overhauling engines for large jet airplanes.
The operations here, we did large engines. We did the engines that went on 747s, the KC-10, DC-10, L-1011. The Airbuses, when they started coming out, we did those.
Their 22-acre facility included several hangars, offices, a machine shop, and a jet engine testing complex. Aviation in Ontario tells the story of American life and industry in the 20th century, from early recreational pursuits and experiments with flying, to mammoth cargo and personnel carriers supporting World War II and military missions, to the changes brought by the advent of advanced jet aircraft. As the airport developed over time, it has changed to respond to trends and global affairs. The nearly 100 years of aviation in Ontario tell a rich and diverse story as the airport continues to move forward into the 21st century.
It has a place, a sense of place. There's no question about it. We all know where it is. We like it because it's convenient. It's always been convenient to travel in and out of Ontario as opposed to LAX. So just for those reasons, we want it here. And its future growth opportunities, I think, are phenomenal. So I wish Ontario luck, and I know that they will make this a great airport again.